Peacemaker Season 2 Episode 5 just flipped everything on its head. And if you thought the chaos had peaked already, you're in for a wild ride. This episode was packed with emotional punches, shocking reveals, and the kind of twists that make you question where the story is even headed. So let's break this down from the top. Because Peacemaker Season 2 Episode 5 wastes no time throwing us right into the fire. What immediately stands out is how this episode balances personal grudges with bigger cosmic level implications. And that's exactly what makes it so powerful. This isn't just about Peacemaker fighting some random enemy, it's about him facing the consequences of everything he's done so far. The cold open already sets that up, showing us how closely these events tie back not just to the Suicide Squad, but also to the messy fallout of earlier episodes. It's the kind of storytelling that feels layered, giving you answers but also raising way more questions at the same time. What grabbed me first was the timeline reveal. Once again, we're reminded how connected the Suicide Squad mission, the Butterfly Project, and now these mysterious dimensional rifts all are. The writers are clearly leaning into the DCU lore more heavily this season, and Episode 5 makes that obvious. We see references that connect directly to earlier arcs, like the aftermath of Starro. And those callbacks aren't just fan service, they actually push the story forward. You start realizing that these characters aren't just dealing with new threats. They're still carrying the scars of everything that came before. And that's what makes every interaction feel so tense. But let's be real, what had everyone talking after this episode is the way Peacemaker himself is portrayed. Chris has always been a messy character, flawed but sometimes lovable, sometimes unbearable. In this episode though, that messiness is pushed to the extreme. You can feel the guilt, the weight of his choices, and the fact that the people around him are starting to realize he might not be the kind of man who deserves redemption after all. It's actually kind of brutal watching the slow collapse of his relationships. Hardcourt, who once swore she'd make him pay, now stands in this gray area where her loyalty isn't as clear anymore. And Flag's return into the mix makes that tension explosive. This isn't just conflict, it's betrayal, regret, and unfinished business all colliding at once. What I found really chilling about this episode is how it blurs the line between Peacemaker being the hunter and the hunted. For once, he doesn't feel like he's in control, not even when he tries to act like he has a plan. Every time it looks like he's holding the upper hand, the story flips it, and suddenly he's cornered. That unpredictability keeps you on edge because it feels like at any second he could lose everything: his team, his allies, maybe even his life. And it's not just about the physical fights, it's about the psychological ones too. The ghosts of his past, the mistakes he's tried to bury, all of them are crashing back down on him here. Another big focus is the reveal surrounding Sasha Bordeaux. Now, the show has been teasing her as an interesting character since her introduction. But in this episode, they finally push her full cyborg reveal in a way that completely changes how you see her. It's casual at first, just a glimpse of her abilities. But then it spirals into something much darker. Her origin story feels brutal, and knowing how the comics handled her only adds more weight to it. Suddenly, she's not just another supporting character, she's someone with her own scars, her own trauma, and maybe even her own agenda. That makes her dynamic with Flag even more complicated. You can't ignore the chemistry between them, but at the same time, you know this is a setup for something that could end very badly. And then there's Eagly. Let me just say, if you thought the Eagle was just comic relief, this episode proves you couldn't be more wrong. The twist that Eagly might actually be tied to something bigger, possibly even a manifestation of the Red, is insane. The moment where it's revealed that Eagly isn't just Peacemaker's pet but actually the Prime Eagle with magical energy changes the entire game. Suddenly, Chris isn't just some guy with lucky connections, he's at the center of something much larger, whether he wants to be or not. And the way the show presents it, with those glowing visuals and the sheer weight of the reveal, makes it impossible to ignore. This isn't a random twist. This is foreshadowing for something huge coming down the line. Honestly, Section 1 of this episode feels like the show's writers taking all the loose threads and weaving them tighter than ever. Every scene has meaning. Every reveal has consequences, and the pace doesn't slow down for a second. You're pulled right into the chaos, and even when you think you've caught up, another curveball hits. This isn't filler, it's set up for the storm that's about to hit in the back half of the season. And by the time the first act closes, you know for sure nothing about Peacemaker's world will ever be the same again. If Section 1 was about setting the stage and tightening the threads, then the middle stretch of this episode is where the emotions really start cutting deep. What makes Episode 5 so gripping is that it doesn't just rely on flashy reveals or shocking twists. It leans hard into the messy, human side of these characters. And it's here that Peacemaker's flaws are magnified under a spotlight that he can't escape. This isn't the confident, loud-mouthed anti-hero from season 1 anymore. This is a man who's drowning, surrounded by people who are either losing faith in him or out to destroy him. And you can feel the tension rise with every scene. The moment between Flag and Peacemaker in this episode is honestly one of the rawest confrontations of the entire season so far. From the very beginning, this season has been building toward this meeting. And now that it's finally here, it doesn't disappoint. The anger, the betrayal, the grief. Flag comes into this not as some rival soldier, but as a father who lost his son. That pain radiates in every word, and it completely shatters the tough guy bravado that Peacemaker tries to hold onto. For once, Chris doesn't have a joke, he doesn't have a comeback, he doesn't even have an excuse. He just stands there, stripped down to the truth, and it's brutal to watch. This scene forces you to sit in the discomfort of his past decisions. And it's one of those rare moments where the weight of this world finally feels heavier than the bullets and explosions. But what really makes this hit harder is the way the supporting characters respond. Harcourt's position becomes even murkier here, and it's fascinating to watch. We've seen her loyalty bend and shift before, but this time it's personal. She swore to make the person responsible for Flag Jr.'s death pay. Yet she's also the one who grew closest to Peacemaker when nobody else wanted to. Watching her stand in that middle ground, unable to fully side with Flag but also unable to protect Chris without betraying herself, adds another layer of suspense. You're constantly asking, is she about to break? Is she about to flip? Or is she quietly holding the strings in a way that nobody else sees? That uncertainty is powerful, because it makes every word she speaks feel like it could change the entire balance of the team. Meanwhile, Economos once again steps up in ways that make him one of the most underrated characters of this season. This episode highlights him not just as comic relief, but as someone with actual backbone. His actions, especially when it comes to standing up to Flurry and backing the right call, show how much he's grown since season 1. He's not just the guy stuck doing cleanup anymore, he's making decisions that actually matter. And it's telling that even the characters who normally dismiss him, like Flurry, have moments where they're forced to respect his judgment. It's subtle, but it shows how this season is quietly shifting the power dynamics within the group. And then there's Sasha Bordeaux, whose presence continues to complicate everything. Now that we've seen her cyborg abilities in action, it's impossible not to look at her differently. The way she handles herself in the middle of all this chaos, calm yet lethal, makes her a wild card. And when you start seeing the sparks between her and Flag, it's hard not to wonder where this is headed. On the surface, it might look like just another James Gunn twist of pairing Flag with someone way younger. But underneath, it's a dangerous setup. Because if Sasha is dealing with her own trauma and her own hidden agenda, then Flag letting his guard down around her could be disastrous. This isn't just romance, it's potential betrayal disguised as intimacy. And that's the kind of storytelling that keeps you guessing. Now, shifting gears to Eagly's arc, because this is honestly where the episode surprised me the most. What started as a light, even comical storyline with him chasing after a fox suddenly turned into one of the most visually stunning and emotionally charged parts of the season. The CGI, the music, the way the scene was shot, it felt almost like we were watching an entirely different type of show. For a few minutes, like a silent short film that carried its own emotional weight. And just when you're pulled in by the beauty of it, the violence crashes down. Red Saint Wild shot cuts through that moment and forces you back into the brutal reality of this world. But the payoff is worth it, because the reveal that follows, that Eagly isn't just a pet, but the prime eagle with mystical powers, is one of the best twists of the season. And let's talk about that reveal, because it's massive. The connection to the red, whether direct or symbolic, opens up a whole new dimension for where this story could go. Suddenly, it's not just about alien tech or political conspiracies, it's about tapping into the primal forces of the universe. That's DCU territory we rarely see on screen. And bringing it in through a character as unlikely as Eagly is genius. It also reframes Peacemaker himself in an interesting way. Because let's be honest, Chris isn't a hero because he trained harder or was chosen by destiny. He stumbled into every piece of power he has. His dad's alien tech, the interdimensional portal, and now a magical eagle. It's like the universe keeps tossing him tools he doesn't deserve. And that tension between luck and worthiness is one of the most compelling threads in this story. By the time section 2 of the episode winds down, it feels like the stakes are higher than ever. The personal conflicts are reaching a boiling point. The supernatural elements are stepping into the spotlight. And Peacemaker himself looks more cornered than we've ever seen him. This is the kind of episode where you feel the ground shifting beneath your feet. Where every revelation has the potential to flip alliances and rewrite the rules of the game. And you can't shake the feeling that if things are this chaotic now, The storm that's coming in the final episodes is going to be absolutely devastating now. This middle portion of the episode is where everything starts hitting harder than expected. The action slows down just enough for the emotions to land. And the writing doubles down on showing us that this season isn't just about Peacemaker punching his way out of problems, it's about him being forced to face the weight of his past decisions and the truth about who he really is. Episode 5 turns into a mirror, and the reflection staring back at him isn't flattering. The real gut punch comes with Adrienne Vigilante. Up until now, his role has mostly been comic relief, slipping in awkward jokes, brutal one-liners, or just popping up as the unhinged best friend. But here, the tone shifts completely. When Chris leaves that letter behind, not even mentioning Adrienne's name, it's devastating. This is the one guy who stood by him no matter what, through every ridiculous mission, every emotional breakdown, every insane twist. And yet he's completely left out of Chris's final words. Watching Adrienne break down, genuinely crying, hits harder than any explosion or fight scene. And that's the brilliance of this episode. It takes a character who seemed like a sociopath, someone who hides behind humor and violence, and reveals that deep down, he does care. His emotions aren't gone, they're buried. And when they finally crack through the surface, you realize that maybe the bond between him and Chris was the only thing keeping him grounded all along. That moment bleeds into one of the most impactful sequences of the entire show so far, the farewell montage, with Guns N' Roses' November Rain playing. The visuals cut between Chris stepping into Earth 2, the team's reactions back home, and Adrienne's heartbreak. It feels cinematic, almost like a series finale send-off, even though we know the story isn't over yet. And the brilliance of it is that it lingers. The editing doesn't rush. It forces you to sit with that grief, that sense of goodbye, that uncertainty of whether this might actually be the last time these characters see each other. The show has always balanced absurd humor with heavy emotion, but here it leans fully into the dramatic, and it works beautifully. You can feel the weight of the moment, and for once, the stakes don't just feel big, they feel personal. Of course, this episode doesn't let you breathe for long, because right after those somber beats, the tension ramps back up with the Earth 2 storyline. Chris stepping into this alternate world isn't just another mission, it's symbolic. He's literally crossing into a reality where he doesn't belong, where everything feels off. And the rift closing behind him makes it final. There's no safety net, no way back unless he finds one. It's a bold move. And the fact that he does it with Eagly by his side adds to the surreal weight of it all. For once, Peacemaker isn't just fighting for survival, he's willingly stepping into danger. Almost like he's chasing redemption in the only way he knows how. And that's what makes this moment so powerful. But while Chris is off in Earth 2, the rest of the crew back on our side of reality are left to pick up the pieces. Judo Master following after him is one of those details that feels small at first. But when you think about it, it's a major setup. The cultural clash alone, someone like Judo Master trying to navigate Earth 2 opens up all kinds of possibilities. Not just for action but for character tension. And it reminds us that while Chris might think this is his solo mission, the ripples of his choices always drag others in with him. That's been the theme all along. He doesn't operate in a vacuum, no matter how much he tries to act like he does. And we can't overlook the ongoing build with Red Saint Wild. His presence adds another layer of unpredictability to the whole narrative. The way he reacts to Eagly's transformation, half fear, half awe, makes him more than just another villain. You can tell this is someone who might be experiencing his own awakening, spiritual or otherwise. And that complicates everything. Is he going to double down on his mission, or is he about to pivot in a way that no one expects? That ambiguity is smart writing, because it keeps him from being a one-note antagonist and turns him into a genuine wildcard. What also stood out in this part of the episode is the pacing. The earlier episodes this season were criticized for being too short or feeling rushed. But here, even though the runtime is still under 40 minutes, the storytelling feels tighter, sharper, and more impactful. Every scene has purpose, and the transitions between emotional beats, lore reveals, and character conflicts feel seamless. It's the first time this season that everything clicked perfectly: the direction, the music, the editing, the acting. And honestly, you can feel the difference in how it was shot. The parks, the Earth 2 landscapes, the use of color and sound, it all makes the world feel bigger and more alive. By the end of this stretch, you're left with the sense that we've crossed a threshold. The setup is done, the reveals are out, and now the story is heading into uncharted territory. Peacemaker might think he has some control, but every thread shows he's actually more vulnerable than ever. His friendships are fractured, his enemies are circling, and even his allies might not fully trust him anymore. The ground beneath him is unstable, and with Earth 2 now in play, there's no telling how far or how dangerous this descent is going to get. This is the stretch of the episode where everything feels like it's unraveling, and you realize that Peacemaker's journey is about to get way darker than anyone expected. The tension builds not through big explosions or over-the-top battles, but through the cracks forming in every single relationship he's got left. By this point, it's no longer just about whether Chris can save the world or survive Earth 2, it's about whether he can survive himself. The most chilling part here is the silence. Normally, Peacemaker episodes thrive on humor, ridiculous back-and-forth dialogue, or wild music cues. But here, there are moments where the sound drops and you're left sitting in heavy quiet. That silence is deafening. It makes you realize just how isolated Chris has become. He's not cracking jokes. He's not leaning on his team. He's in a place where the only voice he hears is his own, and for Peacemaker, that's the most dangerous thing possible. Because deep down, he doesn't trust himself. He doesn't know if he's truly the hero he wants to be, or if he's still just the broken weapon his father raised him to be. And that's when the show brings back Augie Smith, Peacemaker's father. Not literally, but in Chris's head. The hallucinations return stronger than before, and instead of just mocking him, Augie starts twisting his doubts into poison. It's brutal to watch because even though Chris knows his father is dead, the grip that man has on him is still alive. That ghostly presence whispers the one truth Chris doesn't want to face. That no matter how hard he tries, he'll always be the same violent, self-sabotaging failure. And the crazy part? You can see Chris start to believe it. His shoulders slump, his eyes dim, and for the first time all season, he doesn't look like the Peacemaker we know. He looks broken. Meanwhile, back on the other side, the team isn't doing much better. Economos is spiraling, and it's obvious his guilt is eating him alive. All season, he's been trying to prove his worth, trying to show that he's more than just the IT guy, but when things go wrong, he always feels like it's his fault. Episode 5 pushes that insecurity into the spotlight. He keeps replaying every mistake in his head, questioning every move, and what's worse, he can't even voice it to the team. You can see him withdrawing, pulling away from everyone. And it's painful because we've seen how much he wants to belong. Then there's Harcourt. She's always been the strong one, the one who keeps her emotions locked up tight, but here, you can feel the strain cracking her armor. Watching Chris vanish into Earth 2 clearly shakes her, and though she won't admit it out loud, you can see it in the way she carries herself, her hands trembling, her voice just a little less steady. The leadership role she's forced into doesn't feel natural. It feels like a weight crushing her down. And that's the genius of this writing. Every character is being stripped bare. No one gets to hide behind their roles anymore. The masks are coming off, whether they want them to or not. Judo Master's role in this section is a fascinating curveball. Following Chris into Earth 2 wasn't just about loyalty, it's about proving something to himself. He's always been treated like a side player, someone who pops up to stir chaos, but here, you get the sense that he wants to be part of something bigger. The way he shadows Chris, refusing to let him face this alternate world alone, feels like his quiet rebellion against being dismissed. But make no mistake, this isn't about friendship. Judo Master has his own agenda, and that unpredictability makes him one of the most dangerous people to have at Chris's side right now. And then there's the moment with Eagly. Up until now, Eagly has been comic relief, the weird animal sidekick that somehow keeps stealing the spotlight. But in this section, the writers flip that dynamic completely. Eagly's transformation into something larger than life isn't just a gimmick, it's symbolic. It represents everything Chris wants to be: strong, free, unchained from the past. But instead of inspiring him, it terrifies him. Because if even his closest companion is changing, growing beyond him, then what does that say about where Chris is headed? That fear, that sense of being left behind is what cuts the deepest. The pacing here is brilliant. Every scene feels like it's leading to an emotional collapse. You're not just watching a superhero story, you're watching a man's psyche unravel in real time. The fight isn't physical anymore. It's internal. And that's what makes this episode so bold. Instead of giving us another flashy villain showdown, it forces us to sit with the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes the biggest enemy isn't out there. It's inside. By the time this section closes, the atmosphere is thick with dread. You know the breaking point is coming. You can feel it in every look, every pause, every breath. And the scariest part? You have no idea if Chris is strong enough to come out the other side. This final stretch of episode 5 doesn't just land, it crushes everything the story has been building toward boils over here. And it leaves you with that gut-churning feeling that nothing will ever be the same again. If the first half of the episode was about choices and the middle was about consequences, then this ending is about the fallout, and it hits like a sledgehammer. Chris's descent into Earth 2 takes a turn that nobody could have predicted. The landscapes are bizarre, distorted versions of reality. And the tension only grows when he realizes he's not walking into an empty world. He's walking into something designed to test him. Every shadow feels alive, every echo sounds like it's calling his name. And it blurs the line between hallucination and reality. What makes it even more unnerving is how the show never tells you outright if Earth 2 is real, or just a reflection of his own mind. That ambiguity keeps you on edge, and you start questioning everything you're seeing. Is Chris actually in another dimension? Or is this just his fractured psyche dragging him down deeper? Either way, it feels like he's walking into hell. And the worst part is that he knows he walked in willingly. The climax between Chris and his father's apparition is absolutely brutal. This isn't just another ghostly taunt, it's a full confrontation. Augie isn't there to just mock him anymore. He's there to break him. The dialogue cuts deep, exposing every insecurity Chris has buried. The way Augie spits out words like weapons telling him he'll never be more than a killer, that no one will ever love him, that his own team doesn't trust him feels like daggers. And for a moment, you see Chris crumble under it. He almost gives in. His fists drop, his face collapses. And you wonder if this is where he finally loses himself completely. But then, something shifts. Instead of fighting for the world, Chris fights for himself. And that's when Peacemaker the man, not the mask, finally stands up. That moment is raw, ugly, and far from heroic, but it's real. And it reminds you that his journey has never been about perfection, it's been about survival. Back on the outside, the team is dealing with their own collapse. Vigilante's grief spirals into rage, and it's terrifying. The normally lighthearted, awkward Adrien turns cold, violent, and unpredictable. He's not cracking jokes anymore. He's not playing dumb. He's seething. And you can tell that losing Chris, whether permanently or temporarily, has broken something inside him. The question hanging in the air is simple but terrifying. Without Chris, who does Vigilante become? That uncertainty makes him just as dangerous as any villain. Economos, on the other hand, finally cracks under the pressure. In one of the most emotional beats of the episode, he admits out loud that he feels useless, like dead weight dragging the team down. That vulnerability, raw and unfiltered, stops everyone in their tracks. It's heartbreaking because we know he's the glue that's been holding this group together, even if he doesn't see it himself. His breakdown forces Harcourt to step up, not just as a leader, but as a human being. And for the first time, she drops her guard. That moment of honesty between them might not be explosive, but it's exactly what keeps the team from completely falling apart. The ending sequence is where the episode truly shines. With November Rain still echoing in the background, Chris faces down the final vision of his father. He doesn't defeat him with brute force or with a clever one-liner, or with some miracle weapon. He defeats him by refusing to believe him anymore. That silent act of defiance is more powerful than any battle could have been. It's not flashy, but it's the first time you see Chris truly take control of his own narrative. And then just when you think the episode is winding down, the rug gets pulled. The rift in Earth 2 doesn't just close behind him. It pulses, cracks, and grows. Whatever Chris walked into isn't just affecting him, it's bleeding into the real world. That final shot, with the glow spilling across the sky and the team staring in shock, sets the stage for chaos in the episodes to come. You realize that this wasn't just a personal journey, it was the trigger for something far bigger, far deadlier, and completely unstoppable. By the time the credits roll, you're left stunned. The humor is gone, the safety net is gone, and all that's left is a hero who might finally be stepping into who he's meant to be, but at a cost so high it might destroy everything around him. Episode 5 doesn't just raise the stakes, it flips the entire season upside down.